Hi, I'm Ron with Solutions TV. I want to welcome you to the broadcast. Today I'm going to be talking about our favorite addictions. Now, some people prefer cocaine. It's a great weight loss plan. Some people prefer booze or marijuana, or some people just prefer the addiction of idealism. You see, the truth is we're all addicted. Today we're going to look at some things and how all of our addictions are based on one simple thing: shame. Isaiah, in the book of Isaiah, in the 54th chapter, God made this promise. He said, "Don't be afraid, for you shall not be ashamed. Neither be confused, and the shame of your youth will be no longer, even the shame of being widowed." Now that is a promise of God that we can live without shame. You know, the interesting thing is in the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, they were totally exposed. That's what it really means. It wasn't just that they were without apparel, but they were hiding nothing from each other. Nothing. There wasn't anything to hide. But as soon as they ate of this tree of judgment, as soon as they ate of the tree of right or wrong, they came under shame. There was fear, and then they were ashamed, and they hid themselves. They hid themselves from one another, messing up their own relationships, and ultimately they hid themselves from God. Because Adam said, "I was afraid when I heard you," because we were naked and ashamed. Naked and ashamed. That cycle of shame doesn't always look the same way with every person. Some people may just feel totally alienated, and so they back off. They put up intense walls, and they're very quiet and shy people. But the shame of alienation also looks like someone that has to explain everything that they do and always tell you why it wasn't their fault. And it leads to addiction. Whether those are addictions that we socially accept, like money or education or relationships, but sometimes those addictions lead to bad things that are not socially accepted. But that shame, that cycle, God has a promise to fix it. That we won't be ashamed. That we won't need to be alienated. That we won't need to even remember the shame of our youth. Now, every form of addiction is bad, because ultimately we're not taking down the walls. We're not exposing ourselves to God. We're not exposing ourselves to one another openly and honestly, but hiding behind our shame. That shame cycle a lot of times will go towards the appetites that you are the most hungry for, whether they be good or whether they be bad. But the reason we follow those appetites is we have one addiction that's universal. We're addicted to good feelings. We all want to feel good. Why? Because we were designed to live in paradise. We were not designed to deal with death or guilt or shame or the expectation of condemnation. And that shame produces feelings in us that feel bad. So we don't want to feel bad anymore, so we may go to drugs or alcohol or obsessive sex something. Whatever that person's favorite appetite, the addiction of food, food addictions, whatever God-given appetite is given becomes perverted because we want those good feelings again. Then those things we choose other than God, other than exposing ourselves to God and being open and being honest, leads us back to that feeling of shame, and the cycle never ends. It never stops. That cycle never ends. So we feel bad again, so we want to feel good, so we do the same thing that made us feel bad in the first place. And the cycle never ends until you begin to meditate and trust in and believe in the God that's broke the bondage of death for you. Until you take a scripture like this in Isaiah 54:4, don't be afraid. You will not be ashamed. How many people do you know that feel unworthy or inadequate, intimidated or powerless? You ever felt defenseless, insecure? All of those are a product of shame. And shame happens when you take all the blame upon yourself. And I'm not saying blame everyone else about you. That's shame-based as well. But giving it to the only person that can help. Will you do that today? Will you just be honest with God and say, this is the way I feel? And you promised that I wouldn't be ashamed. In order for you to do that, you have to give it to Him. You have to let go of your fear and trust that He will love you without condemning you, making you feel guilty, and for once in your life, be totally and absolutely free from the addictions of good feelings, the addictions of following after passions to get rid of bad feelings. Thank you for joining us today. God bless you, and I want to thank our partners that make this possible. We'll see you next week.